Have you ever given any thought to where could this have gone if we?
I think everybody in life gives like that butterfly effect to like everything that's major. Like, if I go to Michigan State and don't go to Tennessee, I'm on a national championship team. What am I? Do I die in a car wreck 3 weeks later?
Right.
So you just, it's one of those things where you never know. But of course, we've, played that scenario a million times.
Right. Do you have a personal booking philosophy? What works?
I think heat. I think, the business is driven by heels.
Kind of an old school philosophy. Are you an old school guy?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I grew up, big time wrestling in Detroit. The Sheik was the heel, and he was also the booker. And
where's Pampero Firpo?
I don't know.
I'm gonna find him.
He was at. I swear to you, he was at. I take that back. I met him in the lobby of WrestleMania in New Orleans.
So he's still with us?
Yes, I'm almost positive.
Wow.
Because of course the only person on earth that would have known that was him was Sean Waltman, who was standing next to me. I'm almost positive, Kev, that's purple.
Did you talk to him?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
My memory's not great anymore, but I'm pretty sure that was who that was.
What are the most important qualities of a good booker?
I think you got to be. You have to listen. I think that the guys that are really good bookers realize that a good idea can come from anywhere, and not necessarily somebody that's been in the business for 25 years. A good idea is a good idea, and it's the ability to take an idea, even though it might be sketchy, and be able to fine tune it and put it into action.
Mm-hmm. How about a bad booker? What don't you want from your booker?
Anybody that's a dictator, anybody that's my way or the highway, because I just...
An Ole type, maybe? Fair to say?
Yeah, but he hired me, so I'll always have an affection for him, but he was a prick.
You didn't have much say, right, in what was going to happen?
No, nor should I had any say when I came in.
Maybe you, but talent sometimes should have some say.
I think so. I think when you're in charge of 70 or 80 pieces of talent, I think a lot of times that talent, especially if he's a seasoned talent, has a much better conception of where his character is, where it is going, where it should go, than you kind of, all of us as talent are, using the fine-tooth brush to do the details, while everybody else is kind of, the booker basically, he's trying to do a masterpiece, but he's actually trying to do a Pollock. Mm-hmm. He's just kind of
throwing it on.
Yeah, just seeing what happens. So,
how much should you listen to the fans if you're a booker? We're there for them. You're there for them, obviously, but can you really allow their whims to dictate your vision? What's that balance?
The business has changed in so many leaps and bounds to where, it was like in the early days, you were, booking, like say you were booking Florida Championship Wrestling, mm-hmm. and you were basically doing episodic house shows.
Right.
That were following TV, and so that was a different style of booking. Now I think that you have to listen to some degree that if this guy's selling, 5-to-1 merchandise over everybody else, and you're not utilizing him, that there is a reason. If that's kind of the people's choice, I think you have to give. But at the same time, if the other intangibles aren't there, if he can't go 25 mm-hmm. minutes, you can't put him in a main event. You don't want WrestleMania going 9 minutes in your main event. So there's definitely intangibles there, but at the same time, I think that you have to look, especially now that there's really only one entity, that you have to look at and listen to what the collective people are saying. When
you were working creatively in WCW, did your ideas come from pop culture? Where were you pulling stuff from?
Yeah, I mean, I think that wrestling, like when I was, and it's one of those situations too. The only show that I ever was able to book was the first Thunder that I did, and it was from Indianapolis, and the show was where Hogan and myself and Hall were watching the black and white NWO through a camera, and how they were just kind of acting throughout the day. And that was like, that was I wrote that show that was kind of my show. And then after that, I thought it was a pretty tight show. And after that, it was just like, I just lost everything.
What do you mean?
All of a sudden, there was people that had their hands in everything.
Oh, so you didn't have the autonomy. You were still working creatively with them, but like other people's ideas were watering down?
All of a sudden, all of a sudden it was just like, well, you're not really the head booker. You're just the person that's in charge because you're the big grouchy fucker that everybody will listen to.
Who else is in the room at those times? It was you, Rick?
No, Rick wasn't in there.
No, Rick. Okay.
It was Dusty, Kevin, JJ, Mike Graham, Bob Mould.
I was going to say, were you there for the Bob Mould?
Yeah, Bob Mould was there. But then, the thing about Bob is, and I've always been friends with Bob, and we became pretty good friends with him, like, immediately. Like, the first day they brought him in, I just looked at him, and I said, Bob, what do you think? He says, a lot more fighting, a lot less talking. And I went, okay. Like, specific. That's like too much bullshit.
Right. Okay, so what's the ratio? Give me, you jumped ahead of me. What's the ratio for the television show? Give me in-ring, give me promos and / entertainment skits. What are we talking?
I've always had the concept that a wrestling television show should be shot exactly like the Gary Sandling show was. So when the Gary Sandling, remember, like, the Gary Sandling show, if it was live during the talk show, it looked like the Tonight Show.
Yes.
And then
shooting on video for that, and then back to film for the real life stuff. And then also change the visual look of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because then you can do things like when you go backstage and two guys are cutting a promo that's live, and they cut it, and as soon as they say cut and they get out of that, because it's a promo, then you switch to a boom, say cut, and now two guys walk up.
And something can happen.
Right.
Right.
And it doesn't, instead of this one camera bullshit thing that we watch week after week after week, and the guys that have been there the longest know to stand close to the camera so they look like they're 9 feet and 600 pounds.
What's a wrestling writer? What's a wrestling booker? Are they the same?
Writers are, if they have a knowledge, I think, if a person's a fan, he grew up and was a fan, I think what happened was a lot of people, because it's good on your resume, it's just like, I'll write, like Freddie Prinze was a writer. Freddie Prinze Jr. was a writer. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to work with him. But when you come back and a guy is in charge of basically writing your verbiage, and it's 2011, and he looks at you and he says, I was looking at some old Diesel promos, and you're like, oh, like, really? Were they going against Isaac Yankem that week? Or, like, really? That's like, we're going to the vault? This is what we're doing? And on top of that, having somebody write your verbiage.
Why is it done? Everyone complains about it. Everyone says, could you believe they give Ric Flair a script? Okay, so why is it being done? Is it just to control what comes out of people's mouths for fear they might curse? Or?
Well, I think it is. I think that, you don't have to be edgy anymore. You know, there's nothing. You know, I was on a podcast, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, and I just said that, you know, that with the network, like, why can't they have like an adult show? It doesn't have to be on USA Today. I mean, USA Channel.
Right.
But I mean, it can be on the network.
I think we talked about that here once. Like you said, do Raw at 11 o'clock on Friday,
Right.
and do Superstars every other night or something.
Right.
Yeah, no, I got.
I mean,
Well, publicly traded company. How edgy can you be? Is it too scary because the kids? I don't know.
I mean, Warner Brothers publicly traded. You know, I mean, I mean, I look at it this way: if you can't be as edgy as Deadpool, you're not going to resonate in this because after Deadpool came out, that bar is now set here, and if you're anything below that, you're horse shit.
Right.
And if you don't realize that when you walked in there and watched that movie and went, oh, so this is where it's going.
Right.
If that light bulb doesn't go off and you think we're going to start off the next television show with a bunch of guys standing with a ladder in their ass, and that's going to catch my interest. Though I did kind of like the Jericho scarf.
Talk to me about teams or committees, large groups of people making creative decisions.
To me, it's like being in a war room and everybody has an agenda. No matter what, there's 2 or 3 guys working their angle. I mean, it ends up always splitting into. It's like I'm sure it's no different than Congress or anything else. There's subcommittees and subcommittees within subcommittees, and
Should there be a singular vision, though? I mean, a film has one director. There's
Right.
producers, there's writers, there's a lot of, but there's one vision.
Absolutely,
Okay.
and that should be. And it is. I mean, WWE is Vince McMahon. I mean, you can say whatever you want to. At the end of the day, what goes on that television show is his vision, and will always be until he decides not to do it anymore.
Who are some guys you've worked with as a wrestler that you thought might have had it to be a booker, but never got the shot or never wanted to?
Scott Hall,
Right.
I think he's brilliant. I mean, Shawn Michaels is brilliant. X-Pac, Kid's brilliant.
How about a name that would surprise me? Someone maybe I would never think of. Like,
Raven,
yeah, no.
he's smart. He gets it.
Would Scott ever want to do that?
I'm sure that at this point in his life, he might be more receptive to being a part of some kind of, as far as there being, it's gotten too convoluted for it not to be what it is right now. So, but I think that he would be somebody. I mean, geez, just finish. I mean, he's just every aspect of it: psychology, finishes, promos, heat. Scott's a really brilliant guy.
People complain about the writing being kind of stale and uninspiring in WWE. What could they do to light a fire? Other than the edginess, you said bring some edginess back in a separate show.
And it's just, if they're so concerned. I mean, but the people that have adopted NXT as their wrestling. I mean, that's a very different psychology. It's a very fight orientated. The storylines aren't over the top. It's basically, if you're better than me, then why don't you have this championship? If you're better than me, then why don't you beat me? If you want my girl, why don't you take her? It's those things that's. We used to be tag partners. Now we're not. Is there a problem? Yes, there is.
The basics.
Yeah, that's, I remember Eric Bischoff a long time ago saying there's like only really 5 stories to tell in wrestling. There's like 5 angles, and he went through them, and I looked at him and I said, then he would give variations of them. I couldn't disagree with him. There really are only so many stories.
Can TNA be saved?
You know, the production quality has gotten so bad as they move down. You know, I don't know what their production. I mean, it just looks like they're, you know, it looks like they're shooting on $60,000 an episode or something like that. You know, and when you've got, I never have understood why anybody that's shooting a studio show would not mean, to me, to shoot a studio show, then you have to take your production quality and do, like, anything backstage should be POV. You know, I mean, you have the single shot, you know, shotgun miking, like all that stuff. It's got to go out the window, because the only place that you can challenge him is in the. I mean, you watch daytime soap operas, and the production quality destroys them. You know, and it's like they're not spending that much money, so it's like, if they can do it, and my thing is too, when you're not working, like these guys are on contract, and they're not working 220 dates. So when you go into TV, you have a call sheet, you have your scenes, you go in on Sunday, you shoot all your backstage stuff, you know, you come in on Monday, the guys that have matches, well, they work their matches out. If they've got, hopefully you were smart enough to do their stuff that's going to air pieced in before their matches and after it. Anything after, of course, you'll have to do after. But just to be able to give the person, when he gets to television, he's not hampered on what he's going to do athletically in the ring by somebody falling behind on pre-tapes. And then him getting, you know, this push. Well, we've got to get this. Okay, now we're going to shoot it live. Well, you can't do that to somebody. You can't shoot something live when you've conditioned them to be on the trapeze every single time with a net. We're just not going to put the net up tonight.
That's a production standpoint and an organization standpoint.
Right.
Do they have problems creatively?
I've never sat in one of their meetings. I have no idea. I think that I don't watch their program as much as I used to, but I actually think that the program right now is probably in the 30%, like the top 30% of the tenure that it's been around. Just the actual, you know, the stories and things like that. I think that it's going in the right direction. It's just one of those things where, you know, if somebody put a gun in my head and said, "What channel is it on?" I'd be like, "Destination Disney US something." I don't know.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Your personal booking background, what was there a moment in your youth where you realized that what you were watching was controlled by someone else?
No, because I watched it until probably I was like 10 years old, and then I kind of started playing basketball, and then I became, like, basketball took over my life. So I really didn't start watching wrestling again until I blew my knee, and I came back, and it was like the Saturday Night Main Event era with Hogan and that. So that's kind of, I had that much of a gap where I really didn't, I had no, no link to pro wrestling.
But in coming back and watching it later on, you obviously knew what you were watching was theater. What are some angles or storylines from that time that you thought were influential or made an impact on you?
I remember the slow turn of Orndorff on Hogan, and you knew he was going to turn.
Sure, yeah.
But that was just done. That's
for it.
Yeah, but I mean, can you? There's not even opposition, and they couldn't wait that long now.
Right.
They would hot shot that son of a bitch in a week.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, it's just those things that, and like I said, I'll say this to the day I die. Why was the show so much better when Vince and Pat Patterson sat there with a fucking legal pad and wrote the show? And you could walk into Vince's office on January the 6th and go, "Where do you see me at SummerSlam?" He'd go, I see you right now, probably with Mabel.
Were they able? Lucky you. Were you were you able to do that because not just of the singular vision of just a couple of people, so they could go crazy and book as much as they wanted, but because they weren't chasing the quarter hour.
Right.
They didn't have to mix it up every week and go, well, this worked last week, so let's, that's the rate. They weren't chasing ratings. They were trying to fill arenas.
Right.
That's largely the reason, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think the business has changed. There was also, the universe. Like there are days, I'll go 3 or 4 days where I'll watch maybe the nightly news. I might watch a little CNN. And then I don't watch any television. Like everything else is off my smart, I watch Netflix, or it's like something else. Like I don't even watch television. Like that's another thing. Everything's DVR'd now. I couldn't tell you what, what's the Preacher on? I have no idea. I don't know what channel it's on.
It just fetches it for you.
Yeah, it fetches me, and I go through and see Preacher, and I put it on.
Were your aspirations to become involved in the creative aspect of wrestling born out of a desire to be a creative individual, or from working as a wrestler for so long saying, I listen to me for a minute?
When Scott and I came in, we had a lot of control, and we used that control, and it worked. Because we did understand, because we were in that Shark Tank environment, coming in from the WWF then, we did have that Shark Tank environment of like, fuck you, get over. Like, like get over at everybody's costs. And everybody had that, all the top guys. Everybody was protecting their shit. We just so happened to have 5 top guys that were protecting their shit as a collective whole, which gave us a little bit more stroke. And it's hard to end around 5 guys when you got 2 or 1.
Right.
You're fucked. And if you got Sean, who's not afraid to go and bury him to Vince, or anybody else, it's just like, you start to get a relationship, and Vince is looking at it going, well, those 5 guys are in 3 of my last matches.
Yeah.
So, we started to get that power. Then when we made the transition, Scott and I, to go to Turner, it was just like there were so many people that would, at the end of the night, be sitting around going, what are we going to do for a finish? And we just go. And, like Scott and I would just wait it out. Because you can't, one thing that's really hard to do, with 3 minutes before bell time on the main event, it's real hard to shoot down a finish. What do you got, bitch? Nothing. Let's do it then.
Yeah. Oh, that's your music, by the way.
Yeah. See you out there calling the ring. No, it's the truth.
How'd you come to be on the creative team officially? Who goes to bat for you?
I don't know who did. I don't know why I was put on it. I was asked by Eric. I think I was the last guy with a fucking coonskin cap on the wall of the Alamo. It was one of those things where he had so much pressure coming in from the other tower. They've always wanted to shut him down.
Right.
We were in a skid, and I just think he wanted somebody that, I think Eric trusted me, and I think he kind of looked at me as a friend. We were both from Detroit. We kind of had like a mutual. Detroit guys always have like a thing. You don't purposely fuck a Detroit guy over. And no, I think that he was just looking for somebody to just kind of like let him can you take this a little take a little bit of this shit and let me catch my breath. He was never out of the picture.